Hey guys, DMS3 TV here. Today I have with me the Modhouse Argon Mark III. Now, I don't know if you guys saw my original Argon video. If you want to go check that out, I'll put a link in the video description. I'm going to go on and say this. If you're getting these with the protein pads, or if you're considering getting these with the protein pads, refer to everything I said in my original Argon video, because with the protein pads, the Argon Mark III is just a slightly more refined version of everything you heard in that video. So, with that out of the way, let's move on and get started. With the build, these are a T50 mod. If you know what that means, it means they're not the most phenomenal thing on the planet with build, but they do have their own unique style. And if something does break, T50s are extraordinarily easy to fix. I mean, this is a problem I've had with T50s before, is these pieces right here sometimes coming off. It literally is just one screw. It's incredibly easy to repair. And all things considered, T50s are designed as studio headphones, so they are not nearly as fragile as some other things I've used before. But they do have enough weight to them that if you dropped them pretty hard, you might break something. So if you don't know much about the T50, it is a Fostex planar that has small enough pads, most people would probably consider it on-ear, and it is incredibly well known for being made into all kinds of mods. Out of that, you've probably heard of ZMF. Most of ZMF's headphones started out as T50 mods, Mr. Speakers, and many others, such as Cascadia Audio or Mayflower. T50s are used all over the place, and this is because you can do all kinds of things to them to change the sound, or at least that was the case with the Mark II. See, they changed the driver paper between the Mark II and the Mark III of the T50, so the Mark III is a little bit harder to modify. A lot of people do think they sound better out of the box, though, so it's kind of a trade-off here and there. But after a lot of development, Modhouse has finally brought us the Argon again on the Mark III platform, which means they're going to be in plentiful supply. So how does this hold up against other T50 mods, and what makes it special? Well, with the different pads and sound signatures aside, which we will get into later, my big points with Argon are detail and tonality. See, with Argon, and with the original Argon, what I liked a lot is even though it had a 10K peak, it seems like anything you play through it, there wasn't a particularly harsh frequency that stood out. And it has insane soundstage. Now, that is at the sacrifice of a little bit of vocal presence, but you're not going to get a headphone with soundstage quite like this without spending a good bit more money. Now, visually, not too much has changed from the stock T50RP Mark III, but things have changed internally, and comfort-wise, he's added a suspension strap on top and, obviously, pads. And frequency response-wise, this isn't the most neutral thing on the planet, but it is incredibly fun. With all the different pads you put on this, there is a little bit more punch than you're going to find in neutral headphones. And depending on what pads you put on here, the highs or upper mids might be a little bit darker than usual. Now, with these specific ones, the Proteins, which is more of the classic Argon sound, the upper mids are a little bit darker, and there's a 10K peak in the highs. With some music, this can be a little bit intrusive, but I didn't really have an issue with it. And if you personally do, there's other pads that work, such as the Lambskin, which maintains a similar sound throughout the lows, but is a little bit more laid back and evens out the treble. Or the Icon pads, which significantly extend the low end and still have the 10K peak, but it's a little bit less reduced than with the Lambskin pads. And of course, there's many, many others you could try on these. I mean, it's a T50. There's tons and tons of pads out there that'll fit these headphones. But having done A/B tests with these alongside many other T50s, including but not limited to the Alpha Dogs, Alpha Primes, and Vibro Mark II, these are a very, very clear winner in basically every category, including detail. In fact, one of my favorite things about Argon is how insane of a value it is. I mean, we're talking like M1060 or NFB11 value. And I know people are going to ask me to compare these to, the 650, the 6XX, M1060, stuff like that. And it's kind of hard to, because this isn't necessarily a reference sound. This is more of something for personal listening. This is more of a fun sound. So I don't want to compare it to something that's designed to be more neutral, because these aren't necessarily designed to be neutral. I think this would either make a great daily driver for someone who listens to, say, like anything with punchy low end, or a great companion headphone to someone who has like 650 or 600 and wants something a lot more fun. The thing is that having a punchy low end, reasonably sharp highs, and incredible soundstage at a price like this, it makes them very much stand out, because putting these on, and finding some song that has some really crazy ambient noises or some pops and clicks or something really that slams in the lows is incredibly surprising. I've had several people come over and I've showed these to them and they put them on their head and I played a song and they just look at me like, what is happening? And this is after they've listened to, like the Icons and the Aleers and the 650s and all kinds of other headphones. Things that are definitely significantly more expensive than these. And after seeing how well Argon was made and tuned the first time, and now the second time around, I really, really, really hope these do well enough for Modhouse to make more headphones in the future. Now at the time of this video, they are doing pre-orders with a slight discount on them. So I will link those below if you want to check it out, as well as the review of the original Modhouse Argons. Now, as far as amp pairing is concerned, since this is a T50, you're going to want as much power as possible. I was able to drive these reasonably well off in FB11. Didn't really have any issues there, but I definitely had to put it in high gain mode. And I will say something else is that you really haven't heard the true potential of a T50 mod until you have put them on a stupid amount of power. We're talking like 6 to 8 watts. Now, I'm not saying crank an amp up all the way that has that much power, but you can certainly give these things some juice and it will definitely change how they sound. Don't try running these off your phone. I wouldn't try running these off of a Magni unless you really had to. I mean, they're probably still going to sound better than a lot of other things, but I really personally would give them more power if you really want to hear what their true potential is. Now, of course, that goes for the 650 and 6XX and things like that also. If you really want to hear what a headphone like that really sounds like, you're going to have to give them more juice, but they're still going to sound good on just about anything. And on top of all that, the biggest thing that surprised me is that these are closeback. I don't understand how you can get this much soundstage and this much detail in a closed can. Not only do they sound extraordinarily wide and extraordinarily open, but I don't hear tons of resonant frequencies bouncing back into my ears. Which, I mean, no matter how good a closeback pair of headphones is, you pretty much always have that reflection, that sound that you are in an enclosed space. And of course there is a little bit of isolation when you put these on, but at no point do they sound like a closed back pair of headphones. At any point, they pretty much always sound like this sound is coming from way out here. Or something. I mean, this has significantly more soundstage than, like Sennheiser's 600s and 650s, and of course those don't have particularly wide soundstage, but this is an open back and this is a closed back, and the closed back has much more soundstage than the open back, which is nuts. Even if we're talking about a narrow open back should still have more soundstage than any closed back. And here we are. And a lot of this has to do with the things that are going on inside of here, which, to be honest, I haven't opened these up and I don't know what all is going on here, but I've been told that it has taken quite a lot of time for them to get them to be how they are now. Now, the issue with the old Argons is that they originally ran out of T50 Mark IIs because the T50 Mark II is discontinued, so they couldn't make any more of these unless you could track down some used ones or some on eBay or some in another country, things like that. And in some cases, this would make it more expensive if you had to find a pair overseas and use a mail forwarding company or something like that. But now we have them out of the T50 Mark III. So my hope is that the Mark III is around long enough for people to actually discover these and get their hands on them before the Mark III is discontinued, because who knows, that could be, a few months from now, it could be a few years from now. But with the T60 coming out, I feel like there's probably a change for Fostex happening at some point in the near future. Which, by the way, we will be doing a review of the T60 RP. When it really comes down to it, Argon's an insane value, and if you have the amp to push it, I really, really recommend picking these up, if not as a fun daily driver, then as a companion headphone to something else you may already have. And if you're considering a T50 mod across the board, I haven't heard anything like these yet. So guys, if you liked this video, please like it, that helps out the channel a lot. Or share it if you have a friend who needs some headphones and you want to tell them about these or something else. Make sure you leave a comment down below and subscribe and stick around because I have more interesting videos coming out in the very near future. And if you want to see what's next after this one, and if you want to see what's coming out next, check out the Patreon at the link in the video description where I post my videos early access. But until then, guys, I will see you next time. Peace. Next, after this one, check out the Patreon, then link in the